this country into the Parliament here to our Dáil, was there an element, or has there been an element of green jersey politics across the floor, with the major parties certainly not going too hard on the government on this particular question?
Well, it's very clear that all along the commitment was given from Europe, and we heard it from Michel Barnier and Jean-Claude Juncker in the chamber saying absolutely there will be no hard border in this country. It's now become apparent that there will be, and that the European Union are talking openly about it now. And I think that this is really outrageous, given that a hard border really risks security and stability in this country. It's an outrageous position for both the government and the EU to adopt, having given all these commitments that it would never happen. And they're putting the interests of commerce before the interests of security. And we all know the dangers that it might present.
But isn't that precisely the government's point in these negotiations?
It is the government's point, but they're already planning to get more Gardaí around the border. So they're clearly planning for a hard border when they gave us all a commitment it would not happen. And in a situation like this, there's one answer to it, and that is to go back to the Irish people and say, what do you want? North and South, what do the people of Ireland want? They should campaign now for a poll on this and look for the opinion of the people, and it would be clear the people of Ireland do not want a hard border, and we should not be implementing it. If the European Union want a hard border, or Britain want a hard border, and they implement it, then that's their responsibility. But definitely the Irish people, represented by the Irish government, should not be implementing a hard border.
Fergus O'Dowd, you represent a border, I think, Brid Smith. It's gone up in the estimated cost from the time Leo Varadkar was Minister for Health and the planning permission came through. It's gone up by $1 billion. Incredible. And it hasn't gotten any bigger in terms of the number of beds remains the same.
Incredible. And there'll be no more bed capacity than already exists. And on top of that, it's very well worth noting the sort of nonchalant, relaxed attitude with which the Taoiseach talks about the overspend on the Children's Hospital, as against the way he talks about the nurses' pay claims, which pale into insignificance to the overspend. And I think that what really is at the heart of this, and it's at the heart of many of the problems we have, whether it's broadband or cervical check, is the idea that we have to outsource everything. And in the process of outsourcing, we spend money on outsourcing and tendering for the tenders. I think it was something like 8 million, and maybe I've got the figure wrong, could be 4 or 8 million, was spent in tendering for the tenders for broadband. They tendered out for tendering and then spent millions in. It might even be 18 million. My head goes wild with figures.
Coming back
but
to
my point is that it is about the outsourcing of our public need, and they do it all the time, and it lands us in big trouble and overspend. They did it with Lewis. They're doing it with the Children's Hospital. They did it with broadband. We always overspend. That's not a problem, according to the Taoiseach. It is just life. But when the nurses look for equality of pay, my God, the sky will fall in.
Fergus said 3.7
stories high,
and it's going to be 3 times the cost we originally thought.
But Sean, it's going to be there, and we have to make sure it's built.
And we're going to pay PwC almost $500,000 to find out what went wrong. It's a crazy country.
No, it's not.
Is there an issue?
The hospital must be built, and we have to ensure, notwithstanding all those issues,
nobody's arguing it mustn't be built. We're trying to get to the bottom of why such a gross overspend.
And let's have the inquiry
and ignore the problem. Let's get on with paying the nurses and stop ignoring that problem.
Well, I just think is that when you were sending people for tests that they were going to have to get results. I mean, I'm one of the people that got an out-of-cycle test just to reassure myself. That's how women think. And
Niamh, I wouldn't mind correcting you there. This issue didn't arise because our laboratories weren't up to scratch. They were under-resourced. But we had high-class laboratories and laboratory technicians up to 2008 in this country who were screaming out, and it's on record from the Union for the Clinicians and from the Academy of Clinical Science. They were screaming out for more investment in resources to keep the service at home.
But the point I'm trying to make is
that there was a political decision made to outsource the service. That's the point I'm trying to make. That not,
well, that's obviously true as well. But the point I'm trying to make is that there was no checking.
Point something out, and it has been a narrative of most politicians and the media, and particularly since the Scally report, that there's no problem with the laboratories in America. There's clearly a problem. They were clearly at fault.
Well, Scally said there was no quality assurance in cervical check was non-existent, he said.
Yeah, but at the time when Vicky Phelan and Owen McVicknahoom, God rest her, took the laboratories to court, they settled for vast sums of money. So they were liable. There was a problem. And that narrative that's being put about, that there's nothing to see here, move on, the heart of this is outsourcing, and we outsourced again the HPV testing. Instead of trying to bring resources back into this country to open up the colleges to train a huge swathe of laboratory technicians, which young people would be delighted to do, to reinvest here, we're all the time pushing it out, and it's the same thing we do with building the children's hospital, doing the broadband. Instead of giving it to the resources
when you
we
talk
have
about
here,
a children's hospital,
you can do it.
Can I ask you?
There's just no political will to do it.
Can I ask you? You know, you can't have it. In the past, I looked at it in terms of housing for many years. It was a policy.
I'm sorry, we've built tens of thousands of houses in this country under direct labour.
It doesn't
That's
work
when we were
anymore.
at our best to building
No, you're
houses.
wrong. You're absolutely
I'm
wrong.
not wrong.
No, you are wrong.
This is
Okay, we're
nonsense.
moving on.
The other union leaders in to negotiate with the HSE. Pascal Donoghue should be at the table. He has the deep pockets.
Yeah.
And indeed the Minister for Health should be at the table.
But
and the talking to the HSE for them is like banging their head off a brick wall. I just want to point something out. Yesterday was the 13th anniversary of the launch of Vision for Change, which was supposed to deal with our psychiatric services. And today we have 76% less beds in the psychiatric system and 30% only in the community services. There are 3,000 children waiting to see a psychiatrist. And we already know that the children who are in homeless and overcrowded conditions are also in the future going to suffer. What the hell is this government thinking?
Well,
there is a complete lack of retention of nursing in this country because of the way they are treated. And they do need to sit down with both the PNA and the IMOU and look at those issues and resolve them. Nurses are being treated unequal. They get 7,000 less a year than equal graduates in the health service. That in itself is a clause that could deal with it.
On the question of